Experiences are what people love most about travel. With Viator, you can browse and book tours and activities so incredible you'll want to tell your friends. They offer everything from simple tours to extreme adventures in over 190 countries. There's something for everyone. Download the Viator app now and use Viator 10 for 10% off your first booking. One app, over 300,000 experiences you'll remember. Do more with Viator.
What's going on, spectators? Welcome to the latest and greatest episode of Spec Tales. I am your completely real and not somebody else host, Jake, along with my equally real and bearded co-host, Jesus. What is going on, Jesus?
Yes, that is me. I am Jesus. I have a very large beard and a shocking amount of comic knowledge. Also, I'm quite fond of cookies and cream ice cream.
Well, that's something we really didn't need to know. However, something you might already know if you are a regular listener, I'm not actually Jake.
And big surprise, I'm not actually Jesus. I know I probably had all of you fooled, and I'm really sorry for all the theatrics, but we wanted to shake things up for this opening. Also, have no fear for everybody out there just terrified that you're going to end up with me as your host for this episode by myself. Jesus will be joining us for the episode. However, I'm currently joined by this episode's guest, Adrian, aka Actual Dracula on YouTube and Instagram. Adrian, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Actual Jake. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. Huge fan of the show. I'm really looking forward to this. As a diehard spectator, this is a dream come true. And I'd like to give a shout out to all my fellow spectators and money trainers.
Not only is Adrian the first guest to ever participate in the show's opening, he's also a good friend of the show, a longtime listener of the show, and one of our very first supporters on Patreon. For all of those reasons, Jesus and I really want to thank you, Adrian. Thank you very much for all the support you've given us for almost the last year now.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. As I said, I'm a huge fan of the show. Really like what you guys are doing. You know, I was more than happy to become an official part of the Scarce Army.
Yeah, Jesus is going to love that you use the word scarce. Maybe he'll listen to this sometime. But once again, thank you. And for all of you out there listening, if you'd like to learn more about supporting our show on Patreon for $3.99 per month, you can find a link to our Patreon page in the show notes, or you can just head over to patreon.com and search Spec Tales Podcast. All right, Adrian, I think that about does it for the opening. How would you like to do the honors and take us into the intro music?
Absolutely. So call up your boy Wilson Fisk, and don't forget to send a bucket of cookies and cream to our friend Jesus. This is episode 36.
This is a conspiracy. That's what this is.
Just begging to course its way through your veins.
Let's just for a moment speculate, shall we?
You're into comic books, aren't you?
I'm a nerd.
But you do like comic books.
Comic books aren't just for sad nerds anymore.
Do you think we need one more?
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
Do you think we need one more?
Objection, calls for speculation, move to strike.
This is a bad idea. This is a bad idea.
All right, we'll get one more.
Spec Tales, a comic book podcast with Jake and Jesus.
Hello again and welcome, spectators. This episode of Spec Tales certainly got off to a strange start, and I'm thinking the weird will only continue. What do you think, Jesus? Are you ready for a strange Grail tale?
Man, I think strange is a great word. We've had a failed tale, we get Grail tales, and now we get the strange tale. Why not? I love it.
Exactly. If this is your first time listening to Spec Tales, thanks for checking us out. Spec Tales is a comic book podcast that asks collectors and creators, what's your Grail tale? Each week, we explore news stories about the comic book grails we love, the epic journeys behind how they were obtained, or how they inspired new creativity. We also dive into some comic book speculation and how, as collectors, we can help the hobby pay for itself. So once again, let's welcome Actual Dracula, aka Adrian. Adrian, thank you once again for joining us.
Hey guys, thanks for having me. Yeah, really looking forward to this.
Yeah, man. Thank you for coming on, man. We appreciate you. I think we were on your show, on your YouTube channel. What was it, like a month ago, 2 months ago, somewhere around the time?
Yeah, about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're really excited to finally have you on here to tell us your strange tale.
Yeah. I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I think we should preface this for the listeners. So Adrian is somebody, and I've mentioned this earlier, but Adrian's somebody that we've been wanting to have on for quite some time, and we're really thrilled that it worked out. But Adrian also brought us a very interesting idea for a Grail tale. Now, Adrian, if you go follow him on YouTube, Actual Dracula is his channel. And it's a lot of fun. The thing that's most unique about Adrian is he really brings a unique and strange approach to every single one of his videos. He likes to bring a lot of characters in and a lot of personality just himself. And because of that, I think it's only appropriate that his Grail tale reflect that personality that he brings to his show on a weekly basis. And this was his idea to kind of bring in this story, so I'm not going to oversell it. I'll let him do the rest of that. But Adrian, can you just real briefly, just in a nutshell, preview what you're doing for us today?
Yes. Well, I will be telling my Grail tale, which, I mean, that's just like a story, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I got a story for you guys. And, I don't know what I can really say about it. It's a journey. I'll put it that way. I start at point A and continue along to point B, finally arriving at point C. And a lot of interesting things happen along the way.
Is there any shortcuts? Are there any shortcuts in between A and B, or just
not
straight?
That I'm aware of? No.
Oh, okay.
You're not gonna give us anything. You're gonna make us wait. All right.
I will tell you this. It's probably not what you or the listeners are expecting.
Oh, the unsuspecting Grail tale. I'm interested now. Yes. Please. Let's get there. Let's get there. But before we can get there, and for all you first-time listeners out there, here's the way that we break down our show. We do 3 basic segments. The first segment is recent pickups, where we're going to talk about a book or a collectible or books, in some cases, that we recently picked up that we wanted to highlight. Then we will go into the Grail tale segment, which we just highlighted. Adrian has something unique and special planned for us today. And we will finish with speculation. A lot of the listeners, and maybe some of you out there, are speculators that like to help the hobby pay for itself. So we end every episode with a book or some collectible that we feel is bound to go up in value pretty soon, and that maybe you would want to go out and look for it. That sound good to everybody?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Awesome. There's no other place to go than up.
Recent pickups.
That's right, the recent pickup segment. Adrian, I'm going to let you go first on this one because you just went to a con, and that always takes precedence over anything Jesus has.
For sure.
All right. Sure. Yeah. So this weekend was the Toronto Comic-Con, and I went there yesterday. Had a great time, met up with some, really cool people, a bunch of people, I got to know a little bit through, YouTube and Instagram, and finally got to meet in person, which is always great. Also met up with Newbie Comics, who listeners of this show are probably familiar with.
Who?
Who's that?
Newbie Comics.
Do we know Newbie?
I don't know.
It doesn't ring a bell. I'm sorry.
A bell, eh? Okay, sorry about that. We won't mention his name again then. Okay.
He will love that. All right. Great.
Yeah. So I did pick up some books there. Like what I found with, my previous con experience, last year was I did see a lot of stuff that was priced pretty high. That being said, I did manage to get some good deals on some books, including my first one. I'm going to show you guys, talk about 3 books here I picked up. Now, one of the runs I am actively looking to complete is volume 1 of Moon Knight, and I probably picked a really bad time to do that, as all those books have gone up in value. But that's okay, because I actually got a really good deal on this one, which was one I've been wanting for quite some time now. That is Moon Knight issue 24, which features this amazing,
Wow.
of course, all red, negative space, Bill Sienkiewicz cover with stained glass scarlet. Just a stunning cover. One of my favorites in the series. And I got this as part of a 3-book deal. So I think I probably paid about $15 for this. And I see this regularly going for $35, $40 in this condition. So
it's a gorgeous book. And it looked like you got a one in great condition.
Yeah.
Man, that's also I don't know, man. There's some controversy. I think that might be one of the very first or one of the early negative space uses on a cover.
Absolutely could be. Yes. I know it's definitely one of the earlier ones. And, Bill Sienkiewicz has done a few like this, including in this series. But this is one of my favorites. It's just so gorgeous. So I'm glad to finally have that in my collection.
Nice.
Next is a book that I wasn't really even aware of. Maybe a lot of other people aren't, because it is so overshadowed by its much bigger brother, which is, one of the most sought after, most well-known modern keys. And it is Giant Size X-Men issue 2. That's right. Wow. Giant Size X-Men 2. You've, of course, heard of Giant Size X-Men number 1, no doubt.
Yes, very much so.
I think there's something to that book. Apparently, there's nothing to this book, and which is true. This is, in fact, just reprinting some earlier Uncanny X-Men issues. There's no new material here. But I thought it was just a really cool find. Now, the back cover is missing on this, but that's all right, because I paid all of $2 for the thing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's in rough shape, but it's just cool because, I've never seen this before. It was one of those things, because Giant Size X-Men number 1 just casts, like I said, such a huge shadow that I never even considered that there would be an issue 2 or an issue 3, like those books don't even matter. There's actually 4 issues. For those who weren't aware. Now, what's interesting about this is it says on the front, it says an annual collection of the X-Men's greatest battles. This came out in 1975, the same year as the Giant Size X-Men number 1. But Giant Size X-Men issue 3 didn't come out until, I think, sometime in the 2000s. So this idea of it being an annual collection, they didn't exactly follow through with, unless they just shifted it to some other title. But
somebody dropped the ball for a few decades there.
Yeah, I think so. But that was just a cool find for the PC. I'm a big X-Men fan, so to find something that says Giant Size X-Men on the cover, I'm gonna grab that.
That's pretty dope.
You definitely don't hear about it that often.
No, I've never really heard about it. I've never seen it.
If that book had feelings, it would be super pissed off and jealous as its older brother.
Oh, rightly so. Yeah.
All right, and we got one more.
That's right, one more. And this was the only book I had really gone to the con with the kind of intention of seeking out, and I did manage to find a very nice copy indeed. And that is Batman issue 6 from New 52. The first appearance of Court of Owls. Now, I wanted this book, for 3 reasons. Number 1, I'm a huge fan of the Snyder whole Snyder Capullo run. It was excellent. I loved the Court of Owls story. Number two, of course, this is a bit of a spec pick, as you know, with the new Batman movie. You know, there's been a lot of talk, from fans about, you know, people wanting to see this storyline, the Court of Owls, at least be an inspiration for, or maybe just directly use the Court of Owls as, you know, the story for the next or one of the next Batman films. Personally, I would love to see that. And if that happens, this book is going to see some gains, I would imagine. And then third, of course, is the cover. Phenomenal cover by Capullo. Absolutely love it. It's got that crazy owl with the bat cowl on, and the big claw. It's just a great, iconic cover from this series. Now with this book, the copy I picked up is actually the second printing. So the first printing has like a dark blue background. This has a red background.
Yep. I was just going to point that. I was going to ask if you knew that, and I was going to say, hey, I actually really love the second printing background with that red. That's one that I don't have. I have the original one, but I'm looking for the sketch cover of this one is on a short list of mine, and that red one is also on my short list that I'd like to find.
Yeah, so the vendor I bought this from, I saw the book. I was debating whether to buy it or not. I went up and I asked him, because I was not really aware this was the second print at first until I just looked it up quickly on my phone. What's the red cover? Okay, second print. So I asked the vendor, do you by any chance have a first printing of this? He was like, yeah, I get those all the time, but they sell out, immediately. And he said, this is the only second copy of a second print I've ever had. So as soon as he said that, I grabbed it right away. I was like, if this is the only copy he's come across, then that means, it's fairly scarce. Scarce. I forgot where I was.
Thank you. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you.
Yeah. So I was more than happy to grab the second printing, which I guess potentially has more value than the first printing. Just given
I think there are fewer of them out there. I do think that this one, I don't know. We haven't come up with the name for it yet, but it's suffering from the fact that there are fewer second prints than there are first prints, which makes the second print scarce.
Yep,
that's right.
That said, I think it is definitely time for us to hear what Jesus's recent pickup is.
All right, man. This book, I don't think I mentioned it on the podcast before. I've talked to Jake about this before. This book was lost. It was lost to time. I also wanted to talk about it because this is one of the books, or I guess one of the books that I buy or I've bought that is, I'm buying because this is what I like. And no matter what grade it came back at, no matter whatever it was, I could keep it if I wanted to, or I could sell it however I want to do it, because I like this kind of stuff. I like this character, these characters. So I'm talking none other than Amazing Spider-Man number 124. The first appearance of, what is this guy's name?
Man-Wolf.
Man-Wolf.
Yeah.
Or Wolfman.
Man-Wolf.
There it is.
Oh, yeah.
Man-Wolf.
Very cool character.
I love that.
So
love that cover.
Yeah, this is a pretty cool cover. J. Jonah Jameson on the cover, Man-Wolf breaking in, Spider-Man on it. It's what is it? Gil Kane, John Romita, and Tony Mortallaro art. It's a Romita cover. So this book was lost, man. I bought this book sometime around, I think it was 2018, and nobody was looking at this book. Nobody wanted this book. I bought it for nothing. And just because I like werewolves, vampires, zombies, all that jazz. And I bought it and it was in my collection. And then it started to heat up, and ASM started to heat up, and these early books started to get hot. And I was like, man, let me go ahead and send it in and see what it comes back at. I didn't have any, big plans for it, but it came back as a 7.0. And this is what I wanted to talk about as well. You can buy the stuff that you like, just buy it when nobody's looking at it, or nobody cares about it, because eventually it might, if you like it for a reason, it might turn into something, and then you can sell it if you want to and buy grails or buy bigger books that you want. Like, I wouldn't say this is one of my grails. I just like it. But if I'm able to, flip this and then be able to buy a grail that really impacts me or really talks to me, then that's how the hobby pays for itself. Right. And the second thing about that is that this book was lost. I had sent this book into CGC in, I think, early October of last year, and I did a fast pass because I was thinking that I was going to sell it before Morbius came out, and I think it was supposed to come out back then. I don't remember, and they lost it. They literally lost it. They couldn't find it. I think they asked me once if I wanted just to take the insurance on it, and I said, no, man, I want my book. And then earlier this month, out of nowhere, I get an email that it had been shipped because they found it, and then they went through their process in super high speed, and I was able to get this book back. So I'm just happy to have this back. This is my recent pickup. I really like this book, and it's also going to be part, wink, wink, of the Spec later on in the show.
That's a tease.
That's a great book. That's one I've never really, I don't know why, has kind of, it's never really one I think to look for, which is funny because often when I go out, hunting, digging through bins, if there is a section including creatures on the loose, I will always look through those for the Man-Wolf books. For some reason, I've never really thought to hunt down his first appearance, but yeah, that's very cool.
Mm-hmm. His first and second appearance are pretty good covers. The second appearance isn't quite as good as that one, but it's another solid cover. And I think it's the one that's 124, right? So it'd be 125.
Yeah, 125. Yep.
Yeah. Worth looking up. I will go next for my recent pickup, and this one is a fun one that I got this last week for New Comic Book Day, and this is World's Finest #1. This is the slap variant. This is Batman slapping Superman, and this one is written by Mr. Mark Waid, who was a guest on our show a few weeks back, episode 33. And I told Mark Waid I was not a huge Superman fan, but that I really wanted to get this book specifically because I really wanted to get Batman slapping Superman. And I think he chuckled at that, but I don't know if he was just laughing on the outside but crying on the inside. I'm not entirely sure. But something just I had to get it. I was already planning on getting it anyway. But I actually was, when I got to the shop, I had told my LCS that I wanted this book, and he was nice enough to hold it back. And he had two copies. He had this copy, and he had the one where Superman slaps Batman. And he said, "Which one do you want?" So I could have gotten the other one, and I just did not.
I'm typing an email to Mark Waid right now.
Yeah, of course you are.
Yeah.
Please don't.
Well, I mean, you were kind of like throwing down the gauntlet there saying, Mark, can you, I challenge you to write a story that will make me care about Superman. Right?
I don't think I said it that way.
I think you kind of did.
Yeah, I agree. I have to agree with Adrian here. And then Mark Waid said, I already wrote it, Jake. You just haven't read it.
Well, I do need to read World's Finest. I have not read it yet. But I will be reading that shortly. All right. That's it for the recent pickups. Let's move into the next segment.
Grail Tale.
Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. Grail Tale. The Grail Tale segment. In this particular case, maybe we should change it up and call it the Strange Tale segment, because we really don't know what's coming up. And Adrian, I'm still kind of confused. Can you give us more info now?
Well, by info, I suppose I could just tell you the story. That's probably the most accurate source of information.
Accurate. Is that the word you really want to use?
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that word. I mean, this story, I will say, I'd say that calling it a strange tale doesn't even begin to scratch the surface. At least from my personal experience, someone else could hear this and be like, oh, whatever. That's just, that stuff happens to me all the time. But this doesn't happen to me all the time. So
you said there was a werewolf involved in this story. Is that true?
I don't recall ever saying that. No. Okay. But you know what? You never know, because a werewolf in human form just looks like a regular human. So for all I know, there was a werewolf involved.
All right, I'm sorry. I'll let you you go.
That's how they get you, right?
That's exactly how they get you.
So I could just get right into it.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Okay, so this was about 15 years ago. I was not really collecting comics at the time, aside from the odd trade paperback now and then. I was really into trades because I could read full runs of stuff like Sandman and Preacher. I was really into that. I was still reading Wizard magazine every month just to keep tabs on what was happening in all the comics I wasn't reading. This was also when I found a full long box full of comics out on the curb on garbage day, which is not what this story is about, but maybe I'll circle back to that later. Anyhow, I worked at a cheese shop at the time, and a coworker and I got to talking about comics and, all the toys and cartoons we grew up with. Now I'm an 80s baby, so of course I grew up with the cream of the crop when it comes to toys and cartoons. He-Man, Transformers, Ninja Turtles, and G.I. Joe. I played with G.I. Joes all the time. They were just, they're so versatile. You could tie them to a string and swing them around. You could put them in a container full of rocks and sink them to the bottom of the pool. You could rip their limbs off and use a lighter to melt them to their face.
These are all the first things I, of course, think of when I think of G.I. Joes.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm just, this is what you do when you are a kid and you have an imagination.
Yeah, you're setting the stage. Of course. Yeah. I'm sorry I interrupted.
That's quite all right. Okay, but they also had all those cool weapons and of course the best vehicles. So me and my coworker were talking about, toys and G.I. Joe vehicles, and he mentioned that his neighbor had the greatest G.I. Joe vehicle ever made, the holy grail of 80s toys. I'm talking about the USS Flag, the G.I. Joe aircraft carrier. And he said that this dude was looking to sell it. Now, it's understandable why, because this thing is huge. It takes up so much space. You practically need an actual aircraft carrier just to store the damn thing, right? So needless to say, despite not having anywhere to put it, I wanted it. I could mount it on the wall if I had to. At the very least, if I could negotiate a good deal with this guy, I could potentially sell it and make a bit of money because, for G.I. Joe collectors, this is like the most sought after item. So I get in touch with this guy who told me his name was Dragon. Was that his real name? Who's to say? I'm not going to question it. Okay. Anyhow, I asked Dragon about the aircraft carrier. He says, yeah, it's for sale. It's probably missing some parts, as most of these things out there are, but otherwise it's in good condition. Now, these carriers can sell for thousands of dollars, but it sounded like this guy really wanted to get rid of this thing because it takes up so much space. And it was for his son, who's grown up now. So I figured I could use this to my advantage and asked if he'd be willing to make a trade for it. He did mention that his son was into comic books. And so we came to a deal where I would give him $500 and a box of comic books. He said, just make sure you have some X-Men comics in there. My son loves X-Men, and Venom Lethal Protector, which he said his son was looking for. I said, okay, no problem. I've got the full set of Venom Lethal Protector. I've got some X-Men, let's do this. So Dragon said, okay. The aircraft carrier is in the office at my shop. I own a pet shop, an exotic pet shop. He said, come down to the shop, pick it up, great. That was perfect because this was a reptile shop, lizards, snakes, reptiles, right?
Yeah.
Which meant that they had crickets for sale, so I could pick up some crickets as well. See, I had a pet scorpion at the time, an emperor scorpion, which is one of those, big, shiny black scorpions. I named it Stalin after totalitarian dictator Joseph Stalin. Anyhow, that's not important, but I thought, great, that's perfect. I can kill two birds with one stone. I can grab the books, grab the aircraft carrier, and get a bag of crickets for Joseph Stalin. Now, I don't know how familiar you guys are with like reptile people, people that are really into lizards and snakes and what have you, but they're a different breed. I mean, if you thought comic book collectors were an odd bunch, actually some of these people are kind of like comic collectors, and that they will like wheel and deal and make trades with one another, like for a particular breed of snake or something. Like, instead of me trading you Fantastic Four 1 for a Journey into Mystery 183, it'll be like, oh, I'll give you this albino python with an incredibly rare scale pattern for your albino python, but with a different incredibly rare scale pattern, stuff like that. It really happens. Anyhow, back to the pet shop. I get there, okay, and there's all kinds of commotion. I see this woman freaking out, yelling at a snake. At least that's what it looks like to me. Okay. And while the owner, Dragon, he's bandaging up his arm. Apparently, he had been handling one of their cobras and got bit. They had 3 monocled cobras at this shop. Okay, when they say this is an exotic reptile shop, they weren't playing around. 3 monocled cobras at this shop. And apparently, just before I arrived, it bit the owner. And then when he went to put the snake back into its enclosure, one of the other cobras bit him, tagged him twice, and then the third cobra tried to bite him, but ended up biting the first cobra instead. So to sum that up, he was bitten multiple times by 2 different cobras, and one of the cobras got bit by another cobra. Anyhow, he said he was fine. He handles snakes all the time, and getting bit occasionally comes with the territory. It's all part of the job.
Wait, hold on. There's a lot going on. What is a monocled cobra?
It has a monocle on it.
It's kind of one of those classic looking cobras where it's got like the hood, and then the back of the hood, it's got like a circle on it, like almost like an eye.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's the big scary ones. That's what you mean to say. So
they're scary looking cobras. I mean, when you see one, you're dealing with a cobra.
Yes, you're just like, that there's a cobra, I want to stay away. So this guy,
no mistake.
He gets bit twice, which of course is unfortunate. And
technically gets bit 3 times because the second one bit him twice.
Oh, excuse me. See, I'm glad I clarified. And so this man has been bitten multiple times, and then another cobra inadvertently got bit. The first one
got bit by the third cobra. Yes,
exactly. Which, if they were like siblings, that would be uncool. I bet you he said something to him in Cobra, of course. But all right. So,
well, like I said, it looked like the woman there was yelling at one of them. So probably the one that bit the other one.
Was she a parcel tongue?
I didn't get it's so much was going on at the time. I really couldn't. It was difficult just to take it all in, and I was so excited about the aircraft carrier. None of this even mattered, frankly.
That's true. Screw the cobras. Where's the carrier?
Exactly.
All right.
So Dragon says, let's go upstairs to my office. The aircraft carrier is there. I go up there, and there it is, the USS Flag on the floor, taking up like a quarter of the room. And Dragon says, just wait here a moment. I got to go deal with a customer. Okay, fine. Now, I can hear all kinds of a ruckus in the next room over. So I get up to take a look, and there's these 2 kids, 2 teenagers, sitting in, I guess, what appears to be the break room, outfitted with a TV and a VCR for some reason. This was 15 years ago, but they had a VCR, and they're watching a movie, which I quickly realize is the movie Money Train, starring Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes. But these two were not just sitting there quietly watching the movie. Like, they were making a lot of noise. This one kid was going buck. He was just hooting and hollering, yelling, "Money Train, Money Train." Now, I know what you're thinking, but no, these kids, to the best of my knowledge, had all of their faculties, nothing wrong with them mentally. The one of them just really liked the movie Money Train, right? And he was expressing his love for it. The other one, however, apparently was not a fan, as he kept yelling, "Turn it off, put on Dick Tracy. I want to watch Dick Tracy." And then they start pushing each other and yelling some more. And then Dragon comes upstairs and he says, "Hey, not this again. What did I tell you? Cut it out. Enough with the damn Dick Tracy already." And I'm just there trying not to burst into laughter, as I'm wondering, like, is this a regular occurrence? These two arguing over whether they're going to watch Money Train or Dick Tracy. This is just, you know what? But again, the aircraft carrier was in the next room. All this, it didn't really dawn on me what was taking place until after, when I could kind of, reassess the whole situation.
Do you have a preference? If they were to turn to you and said, "Oh, hey, actual Dracula, which one do you want to watch?" Like, you're the tiebreaker, right? Which one are you picking?
Oh, that's easy. Dick Tracy all the way. The Money Train
let's go.
Guy, I don't know, man. I don't know who gets so excited about that movie that they start yelling "Money Train" while the movie's playing. I mean, come on, man. I've seen the movie. It's really not that great. Dick Tracy, on the other hand, I love that movie. So, yeah, Dick Tracy all the way.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Tiebreaker done, but
no contest.
Continue.
Yeah. Anyhow, despite Dragon's attempts to break it up, the situation only escalates as they run out of the break room into the office where the aircraft carrier is. Now, there is a scene in Money Train where Wesley Snipes roundhouse kicks this club owner through a big pane of glass. And it's pretty cool, actually. It's like very Blade, very Simon Phoenix. You know Wesley Snipes. He's good at that stuff. So anyway, the Money Train guy reenacts this very scene by roundhouse kicking his brother, the Dick Tracy guy, who goes flying. And it's impressive because he's a big guy, so big, in fact, that when he goes flying, he lands on top of the USS Flag aircraft carrier, destroying it. He cracked the thing into a bunch of pieces.
Oh, shit.
It was one of the saddest things I've ever seen. So Dragon comes up. He's pissed. He kicks the two out of there. He goes over to me. He says, "I'm sorry about this. I'm sorry for my idiot sons. I imagine you do not want this broken toy anymore." I was like, "You're absolutely right about that." However, he still wanted the comic books. He's like, "I want the comic books if possible to distract my idiot sons for a couple of hours."
Okay.
So I can pay you cash, or I can trade you for this. And he pulls out a small glass vial filled with what he said was actual cobra venom. He says, "I milk the snakes for the venom, and it's worth a lot of money." Now, I gotta say, I was intrigued. It would be pretty cool to have some, real cobra venom. But ultimately, I turned him down because, honestly, like, what am I going to do with this potentially lethal venom? It just seemed like an accident waiting to happen,
What was the top of the vial? Was it like a cork type of thing? Was it like old school? Like, this guy was offering you?
It looked like just like a little plastic cap or something. Yeah,
that's less cool, but understandable why they would be.
That made it seem more legit, and since
more practical, really.
Since the main floor of this shop was full of snakes, I had no reason to think he was lying about the cobra venom.
Definitely.
Now, I wish I hadn't, as I later learned that cobra venom is considered one of the most expensive liquids in the world by volume, even more expensive than printer ink. I think the only thing more expensive than it is scorpion venom. So I probably should have taken it. Anyhow, at the time, I didn't know that. So I said, thanks, but no thanks. I really just wanted the aircraft carrier, so I'm going to keep my comic books. He says he understands.
What about the cash? No cash. You were not. You were set on the carrier.
I really wanted the carrier. Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, I might as well just keep my comic books. I like these comic books anyway. Now, he was like, you know what? I got to get it here for a minute. He offers to give me a ride to the subway station as it is now like pouring rain outside. I say, sure. We get to his car and, right, because I had a box of comic books with me, right? So
Yeah.
I say, sure. We get to his car and it's a Lada. Now, I don't know if you're familiar with what a Lada is, but it was a Russian-made car, very bare bones, and this looked like it was, from the 80s. It was school bus yellow, and it looked like he'd painted it himself by hand because I could see brushstrokes and the paint was bubbling and peeling. I know this isn't exactly relevant to the story, but I'm trying to paint a picture here. Okay. So we get in the car, start driving, and at every stoplight, the car stalls. And at this point, Dragon is on the verge of a complete breakdown. Every time the car stops, he yells, "Oh my God, it's stalling. It's stalling. It's stalling again. Always stalling." And then luckily, the subway station wasn't too far. We managed to get there. I thank Dragon for the ride. He apologizes again for his crazy sons and drives away. And that was the last I saw of Dragon. So then I get on the subway and the car is empty, aside from two guys who, I kid you not, could not have looked more like Woody Harrelson and Wesley Snipes, the stars of Money Train. Just like a totally surreal ending to that whole experience. Okay, but the story isn't over yet. I did mention I'd circle back to this because when I was almost home, about half a block from my house, I found like stacks, about a long box worth of comic books sitting out with the garbage for pickup in the next morning. Now, as I said, it was raining, but so I only found these comics because I was intrigued by what was covering them, which was a long, bright yellow coat, much like one worn by like Jubilee or Dick Tracy, something like that. And so this thing must have been waterproof because the comics underneath were bone dry. So I run home, grab a box, run back, and take the comics. Now, I looked through them. It was mostly a lot of 90s stuff, a couple of minor keys. There was like a first Cable second print. There was a first Nebula. But there was one book that immediately caught my attention, and that was Moon Knight 29. Now, I had never read a Moon Knight book before, but the cover on this thing was stunning. It is, of course, the all-black negative space cover by Bill Sienkiewicz with the wolf head on it. This is a book I now consider one of my personal grails. It's one of my all-time favorite comic book covers. I really like the story in it, which features Werewolf by Night. And I now own many copies of this book. As one of my goals is to eventually get one of these graded at a 9.8, which is notoriously difficult given the all-black cover. So, yeah, I mean, I guess you could say the real Grail tale here is that I found what would become my Grail in a pile of garbage. One last note. When I got home, my roommate was there, and he's a cricket fan, and he was watching a cricket match, and that's when I realized I left my bag of crickets in the car.
Nice. So that's the big one.
That's it. Yeah.
Okay, so all right, I'm going to ask a question, and I mean no insult by it. What percentage? No, don't give me a percentage. I don't want to know that much. Is all of that true?
Well, I suppose my answer to that would be it's true if you want it to be true.
I knew this was coming.
I mean, what is real, really?
Well, look, man.
Do you want to get into that discussion, or are we going to get metaphysical here?
Whether it's true or not, man, I'm glad there's a guy out there named Dragon and does his own paint and body work on his car, his 80s car, and hates your Scorpion Stalin, because obviously he was yelling that it keeps Stalin because of Stalin. So it's real to me, man.
I had not connected those dots, but thank you, Jesus.
Your Scorpion is causing that car to stall. That's all I'm saying.
I also want to point out that guy is immune to Cobra Venom because he took several strikes and just kept on kicking, which also makes me feel like he might have some sort of command over Cobras of sorts, potentially a Cobra commander.
Okay, I like that. Now, I'd like to point out that you came up with that and not me. It's not part of my story, but that's an interesting interpretation. It is entirely possible he just built up a tolerance over the years, though I am quite fond of this Cobra Commander idea. I wish I had thought of that.
Well, did he have a high-pitched voice? Did Dragon have a high-pitched voice?
No.
Slightly Starscreamy.
No, quite the opposite. Very gruff sounding gentleman.
Oh, I see. Well, I mean, people age, right? Like,
Or maybe the Cobra Venom makes the voice gruffer.
That's true. Maybe, you know what? Maybe not Cobra Commander. Maybe he was Serpentor. He just
Serpentor, yeah. His voice was probably closer to that.
Yeah. Was he a bigger burly man, kind of like that too?
He was. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing of Eastern European descent.
So I have a question. Once you realized how much Venom is worth, did you think about going back and exchanging some books, some newfound books that were on the trash heap?
It was far too late for that.
So what you're saying is, by the time you went back to said reptile store, it was all gone. Like you went back the next day and everything, like the building wasn't even there anymore. And that you asked the old lady next door, like, hey, where did the reptile shop go? And she was like, there's never been a reptile shop there. Is that what happened?
Oh, wow. I actually totally forgot to mention that part, but that should have been the ending of my story. Thank you for reminding me.
The last thing, or I guess one of the last things I want to say is, I don't know about you guys, but that's exactly how I watch Money Train. I just yell Money Train as I'm watching it. I'm glad. I feel a lot better now. People have looked at me crazy, for watching Money Train that way. Although I do love Dick Tracy, I would have picked Dick Tracy as well because of the watch, the communicator that I always wanted since I was little. But I definitely watch Money Train like that. So thank you, Adrian, for allowing me this piece now that I know that there's at least one other person that watches it that way.
Well, and in very intriguing twist as well. As a kid, me and my siblings, and I have 3 siblings. So growing up, fighting over the VCR was a big deal. So getting to pick which VHS went into the VCR was a big deal. And I was always a big Dick Tracy fan. That's part of why I asked you the question earlier, which one you would have picked. I'm glad you picked Dick Tracy. But the thing is I always used to be like, put in the dick. And because I always wanted to watch Dick Tracy. So I would just scream that from the top of my lungs. And luckily I would win out and we would watch Dick Tracy more often than not, because most of the time my siblings they wanted me to stop yelling that.
So you were as enthusiastic about Dick Tracy as this guy was about Money Train.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it's kind of like the squeaky wheel gets the grease, or whatever the phrase is for that. Anyway, but so the louder I would yell it, the more likely it was I was going to get to watch Dick Tracy.
That's yeah. I mean, the louder, the bigger volume you put in the dick, that makes sense. That eventually someone's gonna cave and just.
You got to get behind it. You got to get behind it. For those who are still listening to us go on and on, Adrian, I want you to know that I don't know that I've had this much fun with the Grail Tale since we started the show. I think it definitely rivals Chris Vancouver Comic Junkie's Grail Tale from 4 episodes ago, episode 32. when he came on. And man, and the guy who had fists like frozen chickens. This is probably on that scale, that level.
At least, man.
True or not?
I really enjoyed Chris's story as well. My only criticism would be that it sounded a little unbelievable. I'm sure he probably maybe. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying he may have exaggerated some things for the sake of a good story, which is fine. You know, I'm just saying I'm not entirely sure that all happened, Chris. That's okay.
That is a fair criticism. Quite fair.
That's all he's saying.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that, Adrian. I think it is time now for us to move on to the next segment. Speculation. That's correct. The speculation segment, the segment where we each go over at least one book that we think has potential to increase in value over time. Something that our listeners or anybody out there may want to take another look at if they haven't thought about it yet. In this particular case, Jesus, if you're ready, I'm going to let you go first.
Yeah, man. And actually, this is going to be what I guess a callback to something that we've talked about previously as well, which is the warm blanket books, right? So warm blanket is what we've defined as books that are already either, you know, characters that are coming into movies that have been cast or that we know are going to be there, and for some reason or another, the books just aren't moving or haven't gotten to where they should be. So just real quick, Creatures on the Loose number 30. Adrian, you mentioned Creatures on the Loose box. Creatures on the Loose number 30, first appearance of Agent Simon Stroud, who is going to be in the Morbius movie for sure. It's been cast as Tyrese. He's going to be in there. He also has a 3-movie contract. So he's not, I mean, we're going to see him at least 3 times on the big screen. This book is going for under $30. You can find it under $30 on eBay. I'm sure you can find it in some back bins somewhere for even under that. And it's a really cool cover as well. So that's a warm blanket. And then the second warm blanket also has to do with Morbius. The first appearance of, I don't know how to say it, Luxius Crown, who is the potential villain in this movie that's been cast as Matt Smith, who's also a good actor in some other movie that he's been in.
Great actor.
Yep. This book is also under $30. Now, one of them, you know, the Simon Stroud, I kind of see, again, this is a Sony versus not the MCU. He has potential to be in multiple movies and doing multiple things as an agent. And then the villain, I know we don't talk a lot about villains and how they don't carry the same weight as the heroes. It seems like it's going to be a one-time villain, right? Like potentially, right? But at the same time, it's a big movie. The first time Morbius is on screen. Going under $30, I still think that's undervalued at some point.
Yeah, I think those are both great. And I really like that you're tying it to not just movies that are about to come out, but the notion that they've already been cast. But either way, I think both of those are really, really great pickups.
Really good spec.
Well, yeah, spec pickups. That's what I said.
That's what you meant.
All right, Adrian. You're welcome to go next.
Okay, sure. So actually it was my Grail tale that made me think of this, because I had mentioned Wesley Snipes in it, which made me think of Blade, which made me think of Tomb of Dracula. Also, what made me think of that is my name, Actual Dracula. And so I thought it would be fitting, if you're going to have Actual Dracula on, let's talk some Dracula spec. Now, of course, you know, with the Blade movie, with the Moon Knight show, these are great kind of jumping off points for Marvel to really explore more of its the horror titles. And of course, you know, with Moon Knight, you've got the obvious Werewolf by Night connection, and Blade, you know, Tomb of Dracula, of course, my favorite horror title from Marvel. Now, a lot of the Tomb keys are directly related to Blade. You know, the biggest, of course, being Tomb of Dracula 10, his first appearance. Now, when it comes to Spec, if you can afford that book, fantastic. Congratulations. That thing is going for thousands of dollars in high grade. So, I don't really want to get into that. However, what is a great book to look at is Tomb of Dracula 12, his second appearance, which is at the top of my wish list for this year. If I can find a nice copy of that, that's really like the only book I really, really want. I'd be really happy. Now, as I said, a lot of the, not a ton of keys in Tomb of Dracula. It was the full run was 70 issues. A lot of those keys have to do with Blade. However, there are a few others you may want to consider, as I do think it's only a matter of time before we see Dracula and some of these other characters from Tomb of Dracula being utilized by Marvel in whether it's an MCU or Disney Plus projects. And kind of my first pick, really, if you're going to buy one Tomb of Dracula book, looking at as Spec, would be issue number 3, which is the first appearance of Rachel Van Helsing, a very important character throughout this whole story. Of course, Rachel Van Helsing, the vampire hunter. Everyone's familiar with Van Helsing. She's based on Van Helsing, right, from the very original Bram Stoker's Dracula. This is also the first appearance of Taj Natal, who was a former vampire hunter turned vampire. Now, there were rumors going around earlier this year that Taj Natal was going to appear in the Blade movie. I don't think that's really been confirmed yet, but even still, I would say if you pick up this book and Taj Natal is in the Blade movie, I would still say maybe just hold it for a while and wait until we get, I think Rachel Van Helsing's the more important character. So wait until you hear about something about her. Then, I mean, by all means, if Blade comes out and it's a huge hit and people like this Taj Natal character, hey, maybe this book will spike and see some gains. That could happen. However, if I'm a betting man, I'd say wait for Rachel Van Helsing to make an appearance in something. And then just one more I might mention is issue number 7, which is the first appearance of Quincy Harker and his daughter Edith Harker. So those are my picks.
I think those are great. I also really think, just for the record, I think those are super on brand for you, right? Those are books that you're not just recommending them because you just because we're asking you to speculate. You're recommending them because those are books you want as well, or you may already have some of them. But I do think that's great, and I always like reiterating that we tend to speculate on books we want ourselves. We're not necessarily, we wouldn't recommend anybody go out and buy anything that we wouldn't go out and grab ourselves in general. But I do think that sometimes that point does get a little lost. So that's great. I do think those are great books, but I also think that they're really true to who you are and the, what I know about the way you collect.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, these are books I want, and I recommend them because, I'm just a huge fan of this series in general. It's an odd, for Marvel, it's a weird series. I will put it out there. There's something really strange about Tomb of Dracula, really unique to a lot of other Marvel titles.
Yeah, it has really turned into one that I need to put on my list to read, on the actual reading list, not just collect list. All right. I thank you very much for sharing that. I'm going to go ahead and share what my speculation book is for this episode. And it is going to call back to, I called back with my recent pickup back to that Mark Waid episode that I had done before. Mark Waid on that episode broke some pretty big news regarding Irredeemable, excuse me. And the thing is there was a sister series to Irredeemable titled Incorruptible. And that book is getting very popular, or should be getting popular very, very soon. Now, everybody jumped on the Irredeemable train because that was what Mark Waid specifically said on our show. He said something to the extent of, you're in for a world of joy if you're an Irredeemable fan. But the thing is this just last week, news officially broke. So Mark Waid spoke on our show, but it was still, considered rumors and speculation. However, this week, Netflix and Boom Studios made an official announcement that they are going to be doing a feature-length film adaptation of Irredeemable and Incorruptible. And I think that's a very important distinction. They are not simply just doing Irredeemable, but also the sister series that ran simultaneously to Irredeemable, just with a different lead character, and that is Max Damage. So Incorruptible #1 is a book I think everybody should also be looking into, because Max Damage seems to be a very important character that they're going to use in this movie. Incorruptible is incredibly cheap right now. Irredeemable did go up quite a bit, but Incorruptible has still stayed fairly low. So that's why I'm speculating on that.
Yeah, not only that, but you talk about heroes and villains, right? I mean, Max Damage is going to be the hero of the story, right? In the end.
I think so. That is not necessarily, I don't want to spoil anything for if anybody out there wants to go and read, which I would highly recommend it. It has been out for over a decade. I would say if they're going to make Max Damage the primary hero, he is not exclusively the only hero that is there to save the day at the end.
Got it.
I will say, guys, ever since that episode aired, every time I visit a comic book shop, I have been looking for that Irredeemable with no luck, unfortunately.
Honestly, they just didn't print that many of them is what I'm sening. I don't think they had a ton.
That's what I assumed, yeah.
Yeah, and so because of that, I think that it's probably worth continuing to look for Irredeemable. Over time. The movie is years away, I think. I highly doubt they're going to be getting this thing done. Maybe a year from now, we'll have to look back and see where we're at. But I don't know from a development standpoint how quickly they're going to get on it. I don't even think they've got a script written yet. So we'll wait and see. Okay, that is going to do it for our final segment, and that is going to do it for this show. Adrian, I would like to give you a quick moment before we head out to go and tell these fans, the fans of the show, the listeners, where they can find you online.
All right, so you can find me as Actual Dracula on YouTube and on Instagram. I do a weekly series called Comic Picks in the 416 with my good friend Comic Aussie. We do that every Wednesday. In addition to that, I have a sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly, sometimes whenever the hell I feel like it, a live show called Casual Dracula. That's a lot of fun. I bring on different guests every episode. I would highly encourage anyone listening to this to go check out the episode I did with these two fine gentlemen here, Jake and Jesus, as we were joined by a very special guest indeed. I won't ruin the surprise for you, but please go check that out. And, in addition to that, I'll do, other things like unboxings and haul videos and things like that.
Much like, as I said earlier, much like the flavor of the Grail tale that we had today, I want to say you bring that personality and that color to all of your shows, all of the shows that you do on YouTube. So definitely go look Actual Dracula up on YouTube. He is well worth a follow. And you're just going to get more of the same brand that you got here. And he has a lot to say about comic books as well. So there's a lot of fun stuff. Most of it's comic book related, but even the stuff that's not is also amazing. I do have to say, though, can we get a little bit of the Michael Caine? That's probably my favorite thing that you do is the Michael Caine impersonation.
Well, sir, I think it's been quite a while since I've done that, sir.
So I gotta say that's definitely always my favorite. If I see Michael Caine showing up on your show, I've had a good day.
I just felt like Batman. Thank you.
I'm sure it wasn't the first and won't be the last time.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening. We really do appreciate everybody out there who takes the time to listen to Spec Tales. It means a lot to us. Adrian, thank you so much for being a guest. We would love to continue the conversation, and hopefully this isn't the last time we have you on the show. We'll just figure out how to work it out down the road for another Grail tale. I'm sure you've got plenty of those up your sleeve, right?
Yeah, I might have one or two.
I bet you do. All right. Before we head out, let's go ahead and talk about where you can find us. If you want to reach out to us, you can get to us on Twitter at SpecTalesPod and on Instagram at Spec_Tales_podcast. Also, if you are enjoying the show, you are very welcome to go over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify or anywhere you listen and see if you can't give us a 5-star review. We would greatly appreciate it. That does help people find us as well. All right, that's going to do it. Thanks, everybody. Catch you next week.